Lately, I've brought you several different items from Cygnet Tackle, whether that be luggage or bed chairs or chairs, but now they've turned their hands to Terminal Tackle. Now this range is extremely extensive, from all different styles of leads and sizes I'll get onto in a second, different hook link materials, hook patterns, all sorts, it's all there. So of course I'm not going to go through every single item or else we'll be here all day. That's a fish just washed. And instead, I'm going to go through my 3 go-to rigs, from my solid bag rig, my bottom bait / wafter rig, and my pop-up rig. Go through the components I've used from Cygnet to make each of these rigs, just to give you an idea of what they're like to work with, how the end product comes out, and of course, hopefully going to catch some fish. Now, I did have a couple fish last week whilst freelining with one of their hook patterns, absolutely nailed on every single time, but yet to catch anything today. So, as 2 of these rigs are ready to go, I'm going to ping these out with a little mesh bag, and then when we come back, I'll go through each and every one of them a little bit more in detail and show you how I tie them up briefly, but also you'll be interested to know that there's £150 worth of terminal tackle up for grabs from Cygnet Tackle in this video. So stick around and I'll tell you how you can get your hands on some of that. But for now, let's get these rigs out. So the rods are now out, and today I've opted for a multi-rig with a little washed out sort of pop-up and a tiny little bag of a few boilies, and the other one is just a bottom bait rig straight out of the bag, or one of the ones I've got that's been sort of soaking with some glug, and that's gone out with a little mesh bag as well. I have put a bit of bait out earlier with the spot, so hopefully it won't take long for one of those rods to go off. But to start with, I'm using a lead clip setup because it's pretty clear out there, but it's my go-to. If I'm using a bottom bait rig, or a pop-up rig, I tend to opt for a lead clip setup. And then my solid bag rig goes with an inliner. Just to touch upon the leads that Cygnet offer, the ones I'm using today are just your fairly standard looking pair leads, but they also do inlines in pair as well, in both the silk colour and more of a clay colour, and a square version of the same as well, different various weights. And then the some of the leads like this, which is all the way up to a 9-ounce beefy one. So if you're fishing really far out boat work, you've got to have tight lines, or trying to hold bottom on a river, then Cygnet have you covered on all of these different sort of lead setups. So I'll put those to the side. Of course there's more, but I didn't get them all because again I'd have been weighed down like mad on my way fishing. And also noticing the little stems. So if you've watched me much before with my solid bag setups, you'll know that I quite often use tidy stems. This is a similar sort of setup. It's more of a rigid stem on the inside, so it's like a hard plastic, a little bit of flex in it as well, and that goes through to a swivel which is already fused into the thing. So you take the insert out of the lead, and then you're left with this stem with a fused in swivel at the end with a bigger loop. So I just attach my my rig to that swivel end at the end and put all this into a solid bag. So that's why I said I picked all the items of stuff I would use if I was to use Cygnet Tackle. This is the equivalent sort of setups as what I'd use on that I already use, sorry. So that's the lead arrangement setups I talked about. To start with, we'll go through my solid bag rig. So to start with, I'm using a 15-pound soft coated braid, taking about 10 inches of that, cutting it off. And of course, I don't want any kind of stiffness to my supple solid bag rigs because it needs to be coiled up inside of a bag. So the first thing to do is strip it, and as you can see how easy it is to work with, just using my nail, it's peeled off like so. I'll pop that to one side because here's a bit I've already prepared, which is already completely stripped for me. So what I do then is take my hook. Now I'm using a wide gape size 6. I don't tend to whittle down when I go into solid bags, feel no need to. Putting it through the eye, looping it round, and then back through the eye. So I've got a loop. And then what I'm doing there is I'm then getting a screw, so a hook ring swivel with a screw, or you can use just a hook ring swivel and bait floss on. Put that onto that loop. Once that's on that little loop, pass the loop over the hook, so that it then traps the loop with that little hook ring screw, bait screw, and I make sure that that loop goes down flush to about the barb. Then it's a case of just knotless knotting that into place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Back through the back of the eye. And pull that tight. Simple as that. Trim off that little tag, like so. So you're left with your bait screw attached to a little loop. Simple as that. Then take a little bit of shrink tubing. This is the smaller one of the two. Let me just double check the actual thickness of it. It's a 1mm. I've already trimmed a bit off. Slide that down onto the hook link. Down over the eye, and that just neatens everything up. It's not needed. This just gives it a bit more of a kicker, but it also neatens up the hair a little bit. Might need a little bit of moisture on there. It's quite tight. There you go, there it is with a little bit of shrink tube on. Now I haven't even brought a lighter or my stove or anything, so I can't actually steam that down today, but you've seen the end product of once that's steamed down. And then the other end is a simple case of tying a figure-8 loop knot to your desired length. Mine's probably about 3.5 to 4 inches in length. That just makes it really easy to put through that swivel on the inline lead. Or you can put it onto a quick change swivel, whichever takes your fancy. Pull that through and done. Pull that tight, trim that tag end, and that is my solid bag rig, other than not steaming it down, of course, but that's pretty much it. Then the baits are easy to attach on, little sort of 10mm, something like that, a little wafter or trim down pop up, and you're good to go. And that attaches straight onto this swivel, just like you can see with the one I finished earlier. Nice and supple, so the what was it called again? The soft coated, once stripped, is very, very supple, perfect for a solid bag rig. So that's my solid bag setup. Now we'll move on to my bottom bait. Before I tell you how I tie up my bottom bait / wafter rig, it's worth letting you know how you can get your hands on £150 worth of Cygnet End Tackle. All you got to do is comment below your go-to rig, and that's it. You're entered. £150 worth of end tackle will be coming your way. Also worth noting that Cygnet run a deal on all their end tackle, and this is an ongoing thing, that you get your 5th item of terminal tackle for free. So you buy 4 items, you get your 5th one free. So quite nice. It's, every little helps. It takes a little bit of price off, because terminal tackle can add up when you start putting several things together, especially if your rigs require several pieces to go along with it. This one is a fairly simple setup. It's only 4 components, sorry. So your hook material, hook, and some shrink tube, a bit of putty as well, but that's optional, and you're good to go. So to start with, again, I've got £15, but this time I've gone for the semi-stiff. I like to have a little bit more stiffness in the hook link. Take a bit more than what I did with the bottom bait rig, probably about 15-16 inches there. Trim it off, and then instead of stripping it all, because I want to keep some of the stiffness, I'm stripping probably just a bit more than my middle finger, so middle finger and a half. Then I just make a little loop in the end for the hair. Make it nice and small if you can, just makes it a bit neater. And then we have a little hair and a stripped back supple section, well, I don't know, probably about 5 inches there. Now I could take a little bit of shrink tube, the 1mm stuff. So this is this one here, the 1mm thickness shrink tube. Now this bit is to trap the hair on the shank of the hook, so I slide that down first, down to where it needs to be, and then hook wise, I like to use a curved shank for my bottom bait and wafter rig. This is a size 4, so I've already got one out here. Put the line in through the back of the eye and slide that down. Now before I knot that on, I want to attach the shrink tube, so back through the shrink tube, and once you've done that, as you can see, you've got a little bit of shrink tube on the shank of the hook, and this is where you determine the length of your hair, but I like to have the bottom of the shrink tube just opposite, or a bit below, opposite the barb of the hook, so it just traps it there. So that's about perfect for a 15mm boilie or wafter. Then it's a case of knotting that in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that should do. And when I'm just about getting to the strip back section, I want to pass that through, so the strip back section where it puckers up is still accessible on this side of the hook. So for instance, that's knotted on, and the little bunched up bit of strip back is just of here, and that gives me something to grip onto with the little bit of putty that I add there. Now it's time to put the other bit of shrink tubing on. Now this is the 2mm thickness. Because it's a bigger size hook, that 1mm stuff is a bit too thin to go over, so the 2mm thickness, slide that down and over the eye of the hook. like so. Like I said, I forgot to bring my lighter or anything today, so I can't shrink that down. But once that's shrunk down, it becomes nice and neat like this. And you add the little bit of putty where the puckered up bit of material is, just to give it a bit of something to drag that hook back down. If that's wafting around, it gets sucked up and that pulls back down into the fish's mouth every time. And it also gives a little bit more flexibility around the hook area. Because it's stripped back, it's nice and supple. Look at all that movement you've got. That hook can go in any direction, it flips around and digs in every time. There's a case of tying a figure-of-8 loop knot the other end like I did with the bottom bait rig, and there's your end rig. So you can either attach that to a swivel if you're going directly to a swivel, or you can use a anti-tangle sleeve to attach it to a quick change swivel. But just to look how quickly this thing turns every single time, it's a deadly rig. Where you've got that little bit of shrink tube on the shank of the hook, it helps to kick it round when it's being dragged into your mouth. So you barely have to move it and it's just twisting in every time. And that little bit of putty, as you can see, as it goes over the back of my hand, drops down and naturally wants to pull that kicker around and dig in every single time. Lovely. So that is my bottom bait rig. Moving on to my last one, which is the multi. So last up we have the multi-rig. Dead easy to tie and probably even less components than what you've seen on any of the other rigs, because it's just your hook link material, a bait screw or a micro hook ring swivel, however you want to tie your hook bait on, and then a little bit of putty and you're pretty much there. So let's show you exactly how I tie this one up. So again, starting off with 15 pound, but this is the stiff coated because I want it to be a bit more of a boom section, but still a little bit of suppleness in there. I want this to be the stiffest one. And as you can see, it comes out quite curly, but once you steam that straight, it stays nice and straight, as you can see with this one. And also, if you don't have a kettle on you or a lighter, if you hold it in your teeth like so, and then just run your fingers up and down it really quickly, get some heat into that coating, you'll feel it getting hot on my fingers. There we are, I've got rid of that kink already. So nice and easy to work with if you don't have that stuff on you. Trim that off. Now this is a nice and simple case of tying a figure-8 loop knot in both ends, one slightly bigger than the other. So figure-8 loop knot. Hello.
Hello.
Wet that knot and pull it tight and cut off the tag end. Nice and simple. Now this bit is where you take your hook, and I'm using a size 4 short shank for this one. If you've got a really stiff material, it might be best to go with a 𝘁𝗶𝗱𝗲 because it's quite an aggressive angle you can create. But just pass that through the eye of the hook from the front side. Similarly to how I do my solid bag rigs, you use this loop to attach your hook ring swivel or bait screw. So now that's gone through like so, as you can see, that figure-8 loop knot's gone through the hook. And then take a bait screw. Once again, I'm using one of the bait screws, but it's completely optional whether you use a micro hook ring swivel or a little, just a little ring. Once that's through and onto there, all I've got to do now is pass that loop over the hook like so. That's it, you're done on the hook side of things. Now there's some additions you can add to hold that in place a bit more. Some people put a bit of shrink tubing on here or a little bit of rubber to pinch it in place, but that makes it a bit more difficult when you want to come to change the hook over. But that's pretty much it. You can also put a little hook bead there to hold the loop in place at the top. But that part is now done. Now we want to make a little break in the coating just below that knot to give it a bit of a hinge point. Now this can be a bit fiddly because I haven't got any kind of cutting tools with me. I'm going to use my teeth. Like so. Easy as that, I've broken the coating. So once that's fully broken, just twizzle it around a little bit in your fingers, really loosen up those fibres. I think I've got a little bit of coating left to break. There we go. So just twizzle it in your fingers to loosen up those fibres nicely. Like so. And now, as you can see, look how supple that is. Just swings around almost as if it's on a swivel. So that gives you the nice pivot action. Once it's floating up like that, you got all that 360 movement. Because I'm using a bait screw on a swivel, that can be picked up from any angle, and it just spins and spins, but will always drop down into the fish's mouth. So that gives you the nice sort of pivot point. That's when you get a little bit of your putty and wrap it round where you've puckered up the stripped back material. So like so, and that again helps with that pivot point, because you've got the bit of putty there to pin it down. It just spins on that anchor point all directions, and that's again pretty much it. So depending on how you want to attach it to your main line, whether that's straight to a swivel, or if you want to have a anti-tangle sleeve with a loop, which is what I'm going to do. So just another figure of 8 loop knot the other side, like so. Pull it tight. And we're done. Trim that tag end off. So that's probably the simplest rig of them all. And once you've got that boom section, once your hook point gets burred over from a fish or whatever, all you've got to do is unloop that hook, put a new one on, and you're good to go again. So it's such a simple and effective rig. It gives you all that movement. And as you can see, it's all a bit kinked up at the moment. Steam that over a kettle, or as I said, hold it firm on your teeth or whatever. Get some heat into that coating. I can feel it getting hot in my fingers, and that should be perfect. There we are, dead straight. So really easy to work with this material. All three of them, as you've seen, easy to strip and easy to work with to get them into the position you want. All I've got to do then is screw on my hook bait, and we're good to go. And you've already seen the different lead presentations I use, but those are my 3 go-to rigs, whether it's bottom bait or solid bag or my pop-up. Those are the 3. No need to overcomplicate it. And from the years I've been doing all this filming at CARPology and seeing all different anglers, the more I just think keep it simple and keep it to something you're confident in. Little touch on the right hand rod again, which is actually on the multi-rig. So yeah, that's my experience of tying these things. They're probably quite a long video, so if you weren't interested in how I fish or how I tie my rigs, sorry, but there is still the availability of getting your hands on some of these goodies. And in this tackle box here, I've got a whole host of different things from different hooks and rig bits. Now these ones, the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, so these really aggressive looking hooks that are almost like circles. I used these last week when I was freelining on the surface, and I had 4 fish I think it was, and all 4 of them were absolutely nailed and were never coming off. So quite an aggressive hook pattern, really good for freelining or putting like freelining bread. It holds onto the bread quite nicely. Ooh, that's a bite for the guy next door. So really nice aggressive pattern. And then you've also got different PVA meshes, PVA bags. So as you've seen, I've used my PVA bag sets before. You've seen how I was fishing the other day from some of these clips as well. All your bait needles. So I could just go on forever, all the different scissors and everything. There is stacks. So anything you can think of that you'd use in your terminal tackle box, Cygnet cover it. So if you're really liking the idea of that 5 for the price of 4, sorry, that's a really good deal that Cygnet have got running on there. It keeps the costs down a little bit, and also you can win it. Again, just to reiterate how you can get your hands on that, comment below your go-to rig, and if you think any of the rigs I've shown today are ones you like, then great. If not, I'm sure you'll tell me as well that I can improve them, and I'm all ears. So if you can think of ways I can improve these, how you tie them, just let us know below. So it's a pretty open competition. I think that's everything from me. Quite a long video, but you can win some terminal tackle. So please make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms coming up on your screen now. Subscribe to us if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads from us. That's all from me for now, so I'll see you again soon.